Speier, Congresswoman representing the 14th Congressional District in California. And I'm here today to tell you about a bill that I am introducing. It is called the Repeated Objectionable Bothering of Consumer Phones Act. And I've introduced this bill because it's personal. It's personal to me, and it's personal to over 222 million Americans who want to be left alone. Now, my story starts with an experience last year. I, like so many others, thought that the do not call list would protect me. 222 million Americans thought the do not call list would protect them. But the truth of the matter is, it doesn't. Last year, I was homesick with a virulent flu and was in bed for almost 2 weeks. And I was repeatedly awakened, as I tried to sleep it off, by telemarketers, scamsters, someone who wanted to sell me new solar panels or a cheap cruise or a timeshare. And I realized that we had done very little for the American consumer as it relates to this issue. So what we know is that the do not call list is not very effective. First of all, the enforcement is negligible. Secondly, there are loopholes. And thirdly, overseas scammers take full advantage of the opportunity to cause us no untold number of distress from the kinds of interruptions that they make in our daily lives. So, the landline that many people have in their homes now has been hijacked by telemarketers. And when that light bulb went off for me, I did what anyone would do. I canceled my landline. And the telecommunication industry needs to realize that if they want to continue their landline industry, they have got to do more than wring their hands and say there's a do not call list, because that is not good enough. I had a constituent very recently who called me frightened because he had gotten a call from the IRS. It wasn't from the IRS, but they were calling saying he owed back taxes and had to pay right away. Imagine every time a consumer gets a call and they identify themselves as being from the Internal Revenue Service. Many people accept that. And the truth of the matter is that there's $1.2 billion worth of fines that have been imposed by the FCC, but virtually none of it's been collected. The FCC, in terms of enforcement for all its activities, amounts to 50 people. There are 300,000 complaints a year that come in. These are complaints from consumers who don't just, out of frustration, hang up the phone and forget about it. These are the consumers who actually call. And they are not getting what they deserve from services that they are expected to receive, whether it's from the FCC or from the telecommunications companies. So this particular bill that we've dubbed ROBOCOP is an effort to fix that. And it will require that all telecoms in this country offer to their consuming public a free blocking service for telemarketing calls. It will also provide that the telephone companies will have to verify the numbers on caller ID to determine whether or not they are coming from phony phone numbers and really from overseas. It's time that we do something real for the American consumer as it relates to these invasive calls that we receive at all hours of the day and night, disrupting our lives, invading our privacy. And this bill will go a long way in addressing the issue. Now, I'd like to introduce to you a victim of one of these telemarketing calls, Joel Fischman. Joel?
Thank you, Congresswoman Speier, and thank you for taking this really important initiative. I certainly think it's important, and thank you to Consumers Union. I've been asked, the Congresswoman has asked me today to speak for the consumer. Please know that I'm speaking for myself, but that what I am describing may well illustrate what many others are experiencing. We have elderly cousins in the area. They tell me they get upwards of a dozen unwanted calls a day, over half of them at dinner time. My calls begin reliably at 9 a.m. with out-of-area private caller every day. In our home, we are inundated with robocalls throughout the day, and I'm retired, so I have the joy of listening to all these calls coming in. But we get them throughout the day on our landline, even though it's registered with the Do Not Call registry. But it's not only the landline. They're now on my cell phone. My cell phone's not immune, and I've also registered that. I no longer answer either phone if I do not recognize the incoming caller. Some of these calls are sinister, like the collection company that leaves a voicemail that Congresswoman Speier just described, that the IRS is going to take me to court unless I call them back immediately. That I also get a call with the same scenario, only it's OPM, Office of Personnel Management, that's going to take me to court, and for the life of me, I can't figure out how that makes sense. Some of the, I didn't fall for that, obviously, but I did fall for something else. I was having a problem with my Outlook email and sent an inquiry to the Microsoft discussion forum. A short time later, a caller with an 800 number identified himself as calling about my Microsoft software. It was only after about 2 hours with the caller going through my computer and after I had agreed to an annual service contract that I realized I was being taken. The caller said he was calling from California, but more likely he was in Bangalore. Did this call have anything to do with my Microsoft inquiry? I don't know. A short time later, my wife and I discovered our HomeAway account was hacked. Inquiries into our rental property in Delaware were being diverted into an account that we traced to a storefront in London. I don't know how many people forked over money to this London storefront before we succeeded in removing it from the account. Is there a connection between the HomeAway hacking and the deceptive Microsoft call? We have no way of knowing. But to manage this mischief, someone had to get into my account, and probably through my computer. While I was drafting the statement, my phone rang. The caller ID readout says, name unavailable, 1-800-531-1806. Robocalls, in fact, all solicitation calls, have changed our relationship with the telephone. Once a friendly communication device, it has become an intrusion. With caller ID, we no longer have to answer the phone, but we do still have to drop everything to see who's calling. It might be an important call, but when that goes on incessantly throughout the day, it becomes an abuse, and it's much worse for those who are actually taken in by the scammers. Thank you.
I'm proud to say that both Consumers Union and Consumer Federation of America support this legislation, and I'm joined now by Tim Marvin from Consumers Union.
Thank you for having us today, and thank you, Joel, for sharing your story today. He's one of thousands that we've gotten since we launched our campaign. My name is Tim Marvin. I'm the Director of Consumers Union's End Robocalls campaign. Consumers Union is the Policy and Advocacy Division of Consumer Reports magazine. Consumers Union launched the End Robocalls campaign last year to call on AT&T, CenturyLink, and Verizon to provide their customers with free call blocking tools to stop unwanted robocalls. The response from the public has been overwhelming. So far, over 600,000 people have signed on to our petition urging the phone companies to take actions. Consumers can learn more and get involved at endrobocalls.org. Consumers Union has long pushed phone companies